So thank you for joining this InterFAB panel this morning related to the capacity crisis we've all experienced last year, and we somewhat anticipate for this year. As we work, do our best to make sure we improve. That's what's expected of us, of course. But let's have a look at what happened last year, this summer 2018. Which was difficult for many of us. First of all, when we look at ATC, we are lacking capacity, we have huge delays, new phenomena such as weather, volatility. Also, in the airlines business, the operation centers were overloaded. Remember testimony from EasyJet saying that as early as May 2019 they were already burnt out. The flight planning part of the OCC. Increasing complexity for the airlines, difficult to understand the system. The role of CFSPs also, that's a difficult position, working together with the airlines and the ATC. Also the NM operation center experienced some overload, difficult times for them, and I know they've been hiring and trying to improve. For the passengers, well, the passenger view was delays, canceled flights, crowded lounges, and we also saw some bankruptcy of airlines, difficult times. Even though the traffic is building up, it's still very competitive. And strikes in all parts of the aviation chain. We had some strong strikes in Aix-en-Provence in France, in the ACC, but also we had some strikes in ground handling and airlines. So the whole aviation chain has been shook by strikes. Therefore, people are wondering whether air transport is still a super means of transportation. Is that as glamorous as it was in the old days? But at least we need it. We know the economy needs it, and we are determined to make the best out of it. A few days ago, A4E released press release which spoke about inefficient ATM system. So of course, behind the words and the tackling by some airline representatives, you need to hear also that they're concerned and have issues. So what can we do about it? Summer 2018, has been, in terms of traffic punctuality, really a mess. Forecasts from NM, Network Manager, are not looking very good. We don't believe that the situation will improve tremendously this year, but accepting that we do have a crisis, is it only the performance of the air traffic management system which is in the issue, or is it a larger problem? So that's what we're going to discuss today with our 6 panelists. So I will introduce first Wolfgang Brettel, head of ACC Munich, and also the chairman of the FABEC, head of ACC groups. Representing FABEC. Thank you, Wolfgang. Then, so of course my slides are not in the right order, but you have to guess, who is Vidmontas Keris. Thank you so much, Vidmontas, to join us from Baltic FAB Management Office. You're working for O Navigatia, if I pronounce properly, representing Baltic FAB. And Vaclav Voracek, Deputy Director of Division for ALS Planning and Development from the ALS Czech Republic. Thank you, Vaclav. Representing FABC, of course. Maurizio Paghetti, Chief CEO of ENAV. Thank you for joining us for the 12th panel in a row in 2 days. Representing Blue Med Fab. Thank you, Maurizio. and Vezlin Stoyanov, Director European Programs, Projects and Strategy at Bulatsa, representing InterFAB. Thank you. And last but not least, Jed Boyle from NM, Head of Operational Analysis and Reporting. So if you have any questions regarding post-ops analysis, you know everything. Thank you. And myself, representing FABEC, Chairman of the AFG and SP FABEC Group. Very happy to host you in the FABEC Earth Theater today. So, apart from ATC, our first question to the panelists. What are, in your view, the main causes of delay experienced in 2018 by the European passenger? So that's wide, a wide question. I have a nice graph, which I took from the CODA report. So from third quarter 2018, comparison between light blue is for 18 and the 17, sorry, and the dark blue is for 2018. Gives you a rough idea. But Vaclav, would you like to say something about this question? Yes.
We've seen many factors. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. We've seen many factors. So weather, you see very severe weather. Many NSPs in a row struggling with big front lines, closing huge parts of Europe. And the other factor is the traffic density. All flights. So while you have part of Europe closed due to weather, the other part of Europe is overcrowded. And this traffic density, we also see that the traffic is kind of changing. So it's the complexity of the airspace. Whatever worked in recent years doesn't work this time. Mike. Okay. And also, sometimes it's about the airlines, the actual airlines' behavior, their turnaround times, their predictions, what they do. We actually many times don't know what we can expect from them. That's one of the vital factors as well.
Thank you, Vaclav. Maurizio would like to say something on this question.
Okay. First of all, thank you, because we are not starting from the ATC side, so we are looking for other causes. And what I say, okay, first of all, we have to consider one thing. There's been a lot of discussion about the complexity of the network. On the NSP side, it's important to understand and to catch the traffic volatility. Because for us, it takes time to organize our sectors to be ready to accommodate the increase of traffic flow. And in my opinion, we need to know very in advance what are the plans for the space users in terms of their network. Because if we are able to catch their plan, we're able to organize our sectors, our complexity, in order to reduce the delay fragmentation. So the first point is to have a common procedure, data sharing, know each other better, and it's important the support coming from Eurocontrol, the different space user organization, to help us to work in the right way. So also the data and the strategy are important for the growth.
Thank you, Maurizio. Vezlin, what can you say about this issue regarding the passenger experience and the delays experience?
I would say that many passengers saw large delays because we have too many passengers, which is of course good. We should be happy that there are many plans for aviation, but obviously 2018 was kind of tipping point to reach a maximum volume where the system cannot cope. If we go down the reasons why 2018 was difficult, especially during the summer, Obviously, the parts of the aviation system were not prepared to interact smoothly with each other. For example, airlines, airports, NSPs. Um, in aviation, predictability is, for me, number one key word, and we could not predict that airlines will have certain demand, specific demand, for example, low-cost carriers or charter flights, or specific demand that the other players could not accommodate, for example, airports and the NSPs. So, yeah, unpredictable behavior of the various parts of the aviation system, and then too high of a demand.
Thank you so much. Now, Vilmontas, what is your view on this question?
To my mind, it's those causes of delay going year by year. It's nothing new. Maybe now we started to talk a little bit more about unpredictable traffic, about some weather conditions, which also causes some delays or some differences in traffic pattern. But in general, also, let's say, costs of delays are more or less the same like that. First, it starts from airline side, as you just presented, reactional, let's say, process due to some things which are, or activities which are attributed more or less to airline side, not to air traffic management side. On the other side, we have to admit that we are in infrastructure business. So infrastructure is not so flexible as other business are. For example, like in service, I can just to establish some massage, let's say, room or something like this, or you can establish tomorrow and close after tomorrow. In infrastructure, you have to invest a lot. That's why there is some attitudes are not very positive to our business, to NSP business. But in general, so going back to what the main causes, in my mind, more or less the same as was last year or 2 years ago, or 5 years ago.
Thank you, Vilmontas, sorry. Now, Wolfgang, from a unique perspective, what can you tell us, or FABEC perspective?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, and I want to say the same. It's nice to not start with ATC as the reason for delay, but on the other side, I think this is the wrong view. We, as the whole community, it's the airlines, it's the airports, it's NM, it's the ANSPs. We have to take care that at the end the passenger, and I'm on the one side the head of an ACC, on the other side I'm very often passenger in a flight from Munich to Frankfurt or to Madrid sometimes, and what the reason, the real reason, whether it's weather or it's a system outage or it's a staffing issue, that it's not so interesting for the passenger. The passenger just wants to get from one place to another safe and orderly and fluent, and that should be, and I think we are getting better and better in collaborating together, not only on the ANSP side, but as well on the side of with the airlines together, with the airports together, to see how can we improve this situation. And that is first of all the very important thing to understand. If we do not understand, if we take the slide you have shown before, that slide it gives us a way out. It's not ANSP, it's as well the airline. The airline says it's not only the airline, it's as well the ANSP, or it's the airport, or it's somewhere else. And that doesn't help us. That doesn't help if we do not start to focus on the whole picture. Rather, if we still continue to look in our own little piece of world and try to improve that. But that is something we must understand before we go into more detail.
Thank you, Wolfgang. Now, Jed, from a network management point of view, you have the global view, the global picture at your control. What can you tell us about this?
Well, I'll tell it from the NM perspective. Try and look at the question that focuses on the passenger. I think the slide you showed is it comes from a network manager. I think that gives you the share of what's driving the delay. If you like, you see that most of it, almost half, is reactionary. The airlines are next, and then the network, I would call it. So those are your main. But half the delays are caused by stuff on the right, the airlines and the network. So what happens in the morning on a day proliferates through the rest of the day. So on the en route side, I think that the new graph comes out very soon. The annual report comes out. You will see that has doubled since the year before. There are other charts in there that show you the network really concentrated the long delays, the really unpunctual flights. They're in that July, August timeframe when all the news items reference it. So it is very focused, I think. So in terms of what's causing it, yeah, it's a shared thing. But I think in terms of going forward, how you tackle those early morning issues, how you mobilise together to tackle those, will go a long way to tackling the left-hand column, the reaction. But I agree also with that, especially July, August. I think there was some surprise demand. If we look at the annual charts we produce, the eastern side of Europe got a lot of extra growth, and a lot of routes were, I think, it was Germany down to the sort of southeast. A lot of extra traffic that was surprising, and some shifted traffic. So the network was very dynamic, a bit of extra volume, but also very dynamic. And I think how we manage that, because it's a demand capacity imbalance, through the ATM delay. How we handle that is important going forward, I think.
Thank you very much. This question through the discussions, and it was very interesting the feedback we got from all of you. Now, second question. I think we already started answering it in the first question. Are we able to improve if we focus only on our part of the aviation system? Or do we need to cooperate closer with the other stakeholders, airlines, airports, Ministry of Defense, computer flight plan service providers, CFSPs, med providers? Everyone can contribute to the system and to the global improvement of the system. Pigmentas, would you like to say something?
Okay. Definitely, it's a network business. We are not alone in this aviation chain. A lot of operation, operation depends on good networking, good cooperation between all layers of aviation system, starting from ground handling service providers and ending with airline and air traffic controllers. Many things, my mind, appears on the ground, not in the air. And due to some, let's say, baggage trolleys, malfunction, for example, with aircraft malfunction, with technicians, with crew, and with a lack of gates, for example, at the airport, or taxiways, or occupied taxiways, and so on. So it's all, if you think about how to solve problems, so it's on the close cooperation between all stakeholders in aviation system to the solution.
Thank you, Pigmentas. Mauricio?
Okay. Let's say you move to another perspective. I think is important. First of all, we have to work together. This is the main pillar of the operation. How? Going back to the previous, I said with having the same strategy more or less, and one of the possible solutions in terms of operation, FAB level, for instance, is having the same operational approach on specific issues. For instance, having a strong connection with the airports, having the same approach on terms of operation. Route space, for instance, for SEA is an example. To have a flexible approach to the different problems that we have to face. So we need data. Data from the airports. What are the plans for the next future, for instance? We need the support from the met provider to deliver a coordinated procedure in terms of weather forecast and to deliver specific procedure to reduce the impact on the operation. So it's important having on board all the stakeholders to have a common approach to the same problem. At the end of the story, as you said, we have to provide a good service to the passenger, safe, good service to the passenger. So this is our target, but we are not able to achieve this target if we work alone. So it's not only the role of the MSP, it's the responsibility of all the stakeholders, European Commission, network manager, providers, I think also NSA and airlines, of course. So we are a team that we have to work together.
Thank you, Maurizio. Yes. You're welcome. Veselin, what do you say for bullets?
Yes, we're not able to improve if we focus only on our part. We have to work together. Maybe elaborate a bit more on this. When the system is on strain, when the system is overloaded, maybe it's a little bit harder to work together because we start the blame game. Aerospace blame airlines, blame aerospace, etc. So maybe it's even more challenging when there is a type of crisis where we see the type we see last summer and maybe we'll see this summer. It is very essential to align our operational plans with airlines and with airports. To be very clear which are the most difficult parts, which are the most difficult hours of the day or the most difficult days of the week, and to see how we can get these additional 5% of related capacity, or how we can invent additional 2% more flights or more capacity, so that we kind of try to help the overall system and try to make delays lower. I don't believe in Big Bang approach or revolutionary approach. The only way is to sit down together with airlines, airports, network manager, with the strong support of European Show as a body that unites us all, and try to find these 2 or 5% additional capacity that was missing last year.
Thank you. So I take note of your baby steps approach to capacity crisis. I think it's a sensible one. We won't solve everything overnight, for sure, so we need to keep cracking, for sure. Thanks. FABEC.
Issue with Mike, yeah. The answer to your question is no. We as individuals or individual units, no, we can't solve it. We all have limits. NSPs have limits, airports have limits. So Maurizio said it perfectly, we need to work together. We all know it, we all see it. Now it's time to make it happen. The perfect example of that is the past season, 2018. On the graph, yes, it was a difficult season, it was a mess, but it would have been much worse without the 4ACC initiative. I think this is the perfect example of how the collaborative approach works. And then saw the problem, tabled the 4ACC initiative. FABCE was the aiding area, let's say, majorly we were helping to Germany, named Karlsruhe. And yes, we've seen huge delays, but it would be much, much worse without this initiative, without this. In 2019, it would be a difficult season, but I think we are even better prepared based on our experience. But now we see the collaborative approach of NM, of the NSPs, but now we need to take in the loop the other stakeholders in order to overcome our limits.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'd like to recall. Can you hear me? Yes, sorry. I'm becoming deaf. I don't hear myself anymore. Yeah, so the 4ACC initiative was an excellent example. I think, I don't know if it's the final figures, maybe Jed will know about that, but have in mind 5 million minutes of delay saved compared to maybe 180,000 minutes created in other ACCs like FABECs. So it's really a tremendous result. And the new initiative from NM this year, the NM 2019, is building on this on a larger scale. So yeah, I agree with you, we look much better prepared than before. Thank you. Wolfgang, can you tell us a bit more about this relief?
Yeah, what I can do is give you an example of what we have done in Munich exactly with that question. We have had, in the past, we were trying to run the airport without inbound delays, without holdings so much, and especially during bad weather situations, that was not the best for our main customer, but it's getting to all the customers, not only Lufthansa. But they asked us, can you maybe have regulations at a higher value if we would guarantee to take more fuel with us, if we and then we enter a holding, but especially during a thunderstorm, which is only a timely problem, which is not a problem for the whole day. So we can bring our aircraft already close to the airport, and as soon as the thunderstorm is away, we are waiting in the holding, and then we can land, and then we can keep the rotations of this day. And out of this idea, and it fits exactly to the question, no, I'm fully with you. No, we are not able to improve the situation by our own. We need, in that case, the airline. We needed the med provider, because they have now a different role. They must be sure if they say this is happening, then of course the airline starts to take a ton or more fuel with it, and we prepare ourselves for having holdings. And this is an excellent example for showing that only the collaboration, and we have different examples like the Force Center initiative or others, where it's not only the airline with the airport or the airline with the NSP, it's as well in different connections. But it's very, very important at the end to focus. The passenger should be at the place where he wants to be at the time, and safe, of course, as I mentioned before.
Thank you very much for this. Other very good example of the collaboration. So, Jed, you have I believe NM is obviously in favor of collaboration. That's what it's made for.
Well, in terms of the question, I think it's both. I think in terms of the root causes you mentioned, staffing, strikes, those are local situations, so the root cause can be solved, but that's going to take a while. Dealing with the imbalance, demand capacity, that for sure is where NM comes in. As we mentioned, the 4 ACs from the strategic projects, which work, and those are planned for the future. But if you take if you were there yesterday afternoon, you'd have heard of the weather procedures, for example. We talked about, a lot of that punctuality problem, disruption with a lot of bad weather, and whereas before it would be localized, now we see bigger systems across countries, higher, so it's very difficult. So those procedures, that cooperation is crucial going forward. But also we see a lot of the volatility that we've seen when we started to analyze it, when making the data available. You see that a lot of it is due to your own sectors not really raising traffic, and it caused problems downstream, or your neighbours doing the same, or flights leaving early. So there's a lot of reasons, and so because it's a whole set of reasons why we see that volatility, solutions have to be cooperative, but it's knowing where to look, and we're helping solve that, and then getting on with it. So I think short term, a lot of it will be procedural rather than system, and just tackling it together.
Thank you. Working together, I think that's an obvious conclusion to this question. Everyone agrees that it's a teamwork, and it requires to build trust in the system between ourselves, and also to build new procedures for solving the situations, using baby steps again. Not a big revamp of everything at once. Which brings me to question 3. Do we have sufficient data from the other partners in the aviation system? And if not, which data would be required to improve the accuracy of analysis and conclusions? Jed just talked about the volatility and not knowing when to open a sector, or maybe open the wrong sector. That's an issue. So, Veselin, would you like to start on this question?
We do have a lot of data today. Back in the years we had less data, but nowadays we see that data is everything and it's growing. So the better we get at this, the better the future will be for the punctuality of aviation. Much can be done in the future. For example, collaborative decision making at airports, real-time exchange between airports, ANSPs, airlines, real-time analysis of flights for the sake of network management. Yeah, and I mean rich data, really getting the whole picture in details, up to the second, so that the whole process of boarding a flight, flying, arriving is improved. And this can bring us additional capacity and less delays. Additional 5% this year, 10% in 5 years, hopefully 50% in the 20-year period. But this is the future, and this is Cesaro.
Thank you, Veselin. Vilmontas, you need more data, or do you have enough on your plate?
In Lithuania, we not face such problems as delays, but generally speaking about whether we have sufficient data or not, I would put the question another way: whether we have enough people who knows how to read those data. Because if you take, for example, code analysis, it's perfect made analytical work, but in order to take some useful things, you have to know how to read and how to put into practice those analysis. So, to my mind, have enough data and even some analysis you can have. The problem is how to put into practice.
Would you say that the work is changing? The profile of the people you need to hire is different from before?
No, before we had, I guess, less data, less problems. It's my impression, but if you ask people who were working 20 or 40 years ago, they would say they had a lot of problems. So it depends on a point of view.
Thank you. Wolfgang, too much data or not enough data?
As we've seen in the slide, the reactionary delay is one of our biggest problems in the whole system, and reactionary delay can be, from my point of view, can be improved, or the situation can be improved if we would, for example, know what happens, what is the very important flight for this airline on this day, what is the very important rotation, and is this rotation already 15 or 20 minutes behind, or is it only 5 minutes behind? And so this data can help. What we as well would need is more information or exchange of information, not only data. If, for example, we had one discussion again with Lufthansa, and they were asking about the situation this year in the upper airspace, and we were saying that most probably the situation in Karlsruhe will be same as last year. So they are thinking now about, for example, having a connection from Frankfurt to Milano instead of from Munich to Milano, which is closing to the Italian airspace, where a direct border and a better situation for the whole system can be. And that would mean simply on that day they have 8 connections, I think, from Frankfurt to Milan and 4 from Munich. To turn that around to make 8 from Munich and 4 from Frankfurt, which of course means to change something in the system. But as soon as an airline, and this is just again an example, if an airline gets information about a situation which will occur or which will happen, then they can find solutions for that particular problem. But therefore, we first need to exchange information, and in a deeper and a digital way, of course, data, then to improve it and to make automation on that.
Yeah, it's a multiple exchange of information in all directions, in timely manner, of course. The airline, if the airline can tell you well in advance they're changing their rotations, that's much better for the ACC, of course. Thank you. Now, any ideas there?
Okay, I think answering to the question, we have a lot of data. The problem is how to use the data first. And we need some specific data very in advance, because using this information, we are able to manage to adapt our way of working in order to help the space users and the passengers at the end. I think sometimes we as a provider, we are unable to transfer all the information to the space users. For instance, our experience in FAB was when we started with the free route operation at the end of 2016. It was very difficult to transfer in the right way to the space user how to use the free route airspace. And it was quite a mess during the first summer to manage the different flight planning. So it's important, first of all, to run a common analysis on the provider side and the space user side, together with the support of the network manager, of course. And on the other hand, maybe we need some specific data or some specific analysis very in advance. Because for us, we are quite rigid, let's say. The network, the space users in terms of network are flexible, able to change their network from a summer to another. On the NSP side, it takes at least 2 years, more or less, to be ready to cope with them. So having an information very in advance will be very useful for the network to improve the network.
Yeah, reminds me of the infrastructure image. It's slow to change the infrastructure, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Jed?
Yeah, I probably have more data than most, so maybe I'm a bit spoiled. But I think, yes, there is certain data we probably do need. I can give an example. The forecasting side. So, these guys are planning manpower for training for 3-4 years. How do you understand that far out? It's difficult. But as we get closer, as airlines start to build schedules, I think there's a time when they can share that. Maybe not with everyone, but with the network manager. You get better information. At least you know where you have to deploy maybe your controllers or restructure a bit. So improving that type of data, schedules data, knowing where some of the airlines that are very good at going to secondary airports and opening new routes. A lot of that, I think, this summer was that and wasn't really observed or seen coming forward. So that's a lot of the surprise. So the sooner we know that, the better. It helps to plan. So I may agree with that. We are, as I say, with the volatility, we've got a lot of new data, and I think the trick there is we know it, and we're starting to share that. We're putting reporting tools out there. We're speaking to places like Karlsruhe to say, come and help yourself to understand what's going on, and can make that freely available. So that would be the second one. And then I think maybe the third one is going back to the original question, if we want to focus on punctuality, we want to focus on reactionary, how do you put some of this information into the ops rooms? At the moment, I think we see flight plans and traffic load, and we don't really understand whether that flight, that off-block time, is on schedule or off schedule. So if we really want to understand how to help the airlines, and a good example you provide there in Munich, we need to work out what data, what information to push into the operations room, and then it might require some smarter approaches on how to help them out.
Good job. Rick, have any views on this?
Again, we have more data that we maybe need or we can process, but it's the quality of the data, the prediction of the data. We need, as we said, we need to work together. We need to share the data together with the airlines, ports, in order to plan our activities. But it's the quality of the data. Wolfgang's example with the Munich mission. That's the issue. We need quality data in order to plan your activity. You need to predict, and it's the punctuality. You know, how we deal with the data and then how we behave. One operational example: flight plan adherence. That's a huge issue, especially in summer traffic. You have the data, you plan your sectors, you plan your capacities, and then suddenly a huge amount of the flights want different flight levels, higher flight levels, lower flight levels. So many times you actually need to regulate even more in order not to overload your sectors. You need to protect your sectors. You need to protect your controllers. So it's the quality, the punctuality, the behavior.
Thank you, Rakev. Which brings me to the fourth question. So, the famous KPIs. From an operational point of view, are the existing key performance indicators helpful to improve the system? Are there other key performance indicators which would allow for a better assessment of service quality? So just to remind you, the capacity key performance indicator is measuring delays. So is this measurement the most suited piece of information to measure the capacity? Who wants to start? Mantas, please go ahead.
Now we are discussing a lot about key performance indicators, which are part of European regulations. But it appears that no one proposed better key performance indicator that's written in the regulation. And we have to know that the process of adopting regulations goes through Single Sky Committee. Single Sky Committee consists of representatives of states, NSAs, and so on. So, to my mind, any country, European Union country, would propose some better, in their view, better indicators, but it appeared no one did. So, it looks like we are discussing a lot about that. The indicators are not reflecting the real situation. There's some difficulties and so on, but in reality, no one proposed something different.
Okay, I hear you. You're putting us to the test. Can we propose anything better? Thank you, Vidmantas. So, Veselin, do you have any good idea to share?
No one seems to be happy with the performance scheme, but it goes on. I might even say that the performance scheme is part of the reason why we had today's difficult situation in the summer of 2018, because it was always pointing to sizing down, putting pressure on NSPs, etc., etc. So they couldn't see margin to grow and accommodate more traffic. and it appeared in 2018, and everyone was surprised. If the KPIs are helpful, especially when we talk about service quality, I'm not sure. The present performance scheme does not have as a main focus service quality. It's about efficiency, cost efficiency. If we better point to service quality and especially no delays, then we should be thinking about how to make the whole aviation system in Europe behave in such a way that delays are reduced in the future. And for me, one obvious way would be that more investment is needed in air traffic controllers. For example, the measurements about the extension of the trajectories, the CAP indicator, why do we have CAP and CARE, so the actual trajectory and flight plan trajectory, simply to show that the actuals do not comply with the route network. What does it help us? Why don't we measure only the actuals? Because actually the flights were there. And also the CAP indicator nowadays does not take into account when you have large amount of airspace closed. And we have such an example very close to InterFAB, which is bothering us a lot. But the indicator does not take that into account. We can think of many examples, many ways to improve the performance scheme. For me, number one is performance scheme should allow for the system to fine-tune itself in such a way that no delays are produced in the future, less delays are produced in the future.
Thank you, Basilin. So, yes, you were mentioning the Ukraine airspace, which impacts you a lot in the InterFAB, I understand.
Yeah, it's an enormous piece of airspace and it's close to price.
Mauricio?
Okay, you said from operational point of view, are enough. KPIs are enough. The problem is how to use the information given by the KPIs, the capacity. Okay, we have a problem in terms of capacity, and this is a clear indicator. What will be the possible answer to the information given by the KPIs? Delays, okay, how to use this information? In my opinion, this is our role, is to analyze in the right way the information given the KPIs, delays and whatever, and to have a common strategy to improve, for instance, the capacity, adopting the same, for instance, operational procedure. Starting at the FAB level, for instance, which is the only platform where different providers are working together with an SA, and they are able to start a common approach to the same problem. As a Blue Med, we have worked together to implement, I said, free route operation. And now we are moving to our colleagues or the other FAB to a cross-border coordination. Because behind this work, there's another approach, the flexibility. So the KPIs that are on the place, I think, are enough. It's important how to use. And for instance, we deliver a good coordination for weather with our colleagues of FABEC. There's with Padua and Munich ACC, for instance, we have a good cooperation to how to manage the reduction of capacity given by storm thunderstorm, especially during the summer period. It's quite critical for us. So it's important to work together using the KPI as a thermometer of the situation, but we have to work considering that we have to improve the performance in terms of operation together with all the stakeholders.
Thank you, Mauricio. Vaclav, what do you think, these KPIs?
So, speaking strictly from the operational point of view, no. I myself am still active en-route air traffic controller. I don't have KPIs in mind. When I'm in the ops room, I provide safe air traffic services, and that's it. I don't care about KPIs, and we don't want that. From the management point of view, I think they're a good thing. We need indicators, we need some kind of measurements, and they give the right impetus. They push us forward, they push us to do something. So that's a good thing. The only comment that I would have that we need to assess them at various levels. Again, 2018 season, this season would be the same. We need to assess them at the network level, because while someone is worse performing, the overall network impact is actually better. So we need to look at the whole network level, but we still need them.
For sure, we need KPIs to measure. Thank you. Wolfgang, do you have any views on these KPIs, proposals?
KPI, for example, for capacity is measuring of delay or departure delay, which is, for example, not taking into account flights which are cancelled due to such a high amount of delay that they rather cancel the flight before they wait for the departure. So this is not an accurate number, and we are not measuring in the system the capacity we are offering. And from my point of view as a head of ACC, what I'm trying to do in Munich is to have a good look on the productivity of my controller. So is my ACC good structured in the airspace structure, the sector structure? Is it a sensible sector structure which opens adding sectors in a manner that the stuffing can be there when the traffic is there, and all these things? So this is something I look very much more on than on delay minutes, which are just at the end. In the past, when I was a supervisor in a different center in DFS, it was very important to be the first to have a regulation on, because if others come later, they get all the delays because of the logic that the most affecting ACC is getting the delay or sector is getting the delay. So it's not reflecting the situation, and we still with this KPIs not looking what is the passenger needing if he flies later on from Madrid to Munich. I want to fly when my flight is planned, and I want to be in Munich when the time there is planned, and this is not reflected by these KPIs. As simple as that. As far as I know, in the FAA or in the US, it's different. There is much more the perspective of the passenger reflected in the KPIs, and that I would see as a better way.
So we might need to work a bit, not far P3, but far P4, to brainstorm a bit and see how we can take better into account the passenger view, because we did build capacity. We did provide more capacity in 2018 than 17, although delays built up, but capacity also went up. So that should be reflected somehow that we deliver something. Jed, any view from the?
Performance indicators are useful through the system. Yes, as a starting point, but you don't read them blindly. It's the interpretation, as you say. So my mastery colleagues have disappeared, but they would tell you on any delay chart they're there for the summer. But when you look at the throughput of traffic they handle, the productivity, it's very high. They would say they're one of the best in Europe, if not the best. So I think you have to interpret that as well. Also, when you see delay, some of the ACCs delivered the capacity they said they would, and they were surprised by the traffic. So you have to interpret it that way as well. So as a first indicator, I agree, it's enough, but you have to go to the second explanation to understand and not just point the finger. Other indicators, service quality. Okay, I think we talked about punctuality. Okay, there are different drivers of punctuality, and I think they've put it in to the performance scheme as an indicator. So maybe it's been thought about for the future. But again, you saw, we have to think, it's just airline, is ANSP, are they in control of that punctuality? Maybe not all the time. But I think some other indicators we're working on, given what we had in the summer, is the volatility indicator, trying to show if you've got a lot of volatility, start not to trust the system, and then you put a bit of extra protection on, and it's sort of a vicious circle. If we can show which of the areas that do have this problem, that's a good indicator, I think, just to get the balance right in Europe. And then finally, the other indicator that we've been working on is, and you probably heard this yesterday in the afternoon, what we observed in the summer was the way some of the flow management positions handled the situation, not always optimal. So we can look at how often, how many regulations they put on, and how often they change it. A lot of volatility, a lot of the airports were saying it's very difficult to put a departure sequence together because everything's moving because of the number of regulations, but how often they're changed. And I think looking at that, the frequency of change is a good way of understanding whether the ANSP is really managing the situation. You know, it may not be their fault, the root cause, but I think that's a good to say, look, it points the finger where we can go and say, look, maybe there are better ways of doing this, and I think that will improve the situation as well.
For sure, it's a good indicator of the pressure that's on the ACC when you see the volatility regulations. Thank you. Now, our last question. We're on time, so we still have time for this question. What would be required to cooperate closer? We said numerous times that we need to work as a team, to deliver collaborative processes, to deliver the performance. So does the performance and charging regulation need to be changed? So not only about the KPIs, but are there any other topics in the performance regulation, performance and charging regulation that needs to be changed? I see Veselin nodding, so Veselin, you get to go first.
Changed, and they will be changed every 5 years. We see the next regulations that will be applicable from next year, but of course it's not a serious answer. I would like to see a change in those regulations with a much better commitment on the side of airlines. Because nowadays, my impression is that the regulation says you're there to accommodate every flight. If you don't, there's going to be a delay. But every flight brings the idea of infinite increase of flights that's possible, but it's not. For example, we need to see Ryanair show that they want to have 1 million flights next year. And if they actually produce 1 million and 100,000 more than that million, they should know that it's a surplus and they might have a delay. Nowadays, I think we're expected to accommodate every flight, but nobody knows the exact number of those flights. So it's almost like you need to stretch the ATM system indefinitely. It's not possible. Simply not possible. So I'd like to see better engagement of the airlines and airports with a clear notion that volume of service is not indefinite. It's a well-defined number.
Thank you very much. So I noted down the limitation of the ATM system, not just of the airspace. The airspace is a limited resource. Thank you. Mauricio?
Not an easy question to answer. Thank you. The last one. I think, first of all, we have to consider, in my opinion, the performance and the capacity. More important. Okay, we have to adapt the charging regulation, in my opinion. If you ask more flexibility, capacity, and performance, on SP side, I think we have to find a sort of balance in terms of regulation. Going back, I fully support your idea. We are not able to manage the increase of traffic without any limit. So it's important, again, to have a common approach, what is crucial for the network. Capacity, okay, we are working on the capacity. Keep in mind that we are to maintain a certain level of cost, which is the other thing that we have to consider. But at the end, I think it's important, and this is the experience that we had last summer, and probably the next summer, I think the capacity is the issue for the next period, for the next 2-3 years. So we have to adapt our scheme, considering that the increase of the delay is a distraction of money for the airline and for the passengers. So I think the regulation should take in consideration the different situation that we have to consider in the next 5 years. So it's important to change. Keep in mind that I think now the key word is performance and reduction of delay.
Thank you, Maurizio. So, Vidmantas, as you're nodding.
I would point out that in order to establish cooperation, we have to have common goals. Speaking about aviation system, our goals are totally different. At SP side, we are more concentrated on safe, efficient service. While let's look, for example, airline. For them, its main goal is profit. Maybe it could be said in different words, but behind stands profit. For many airports, more or less the same. More aircraft, more passengers, turnaround time, and so on. And it creates some tension between all stakeholders in the aviation system. That's why I think that what is required for cooperation is only goodwill. But otherwise, being in different, let's say, boats, you can't swim into one or the same direction. So only goodwill could help us.
Thank you, Vidmantas. Yes, for sure. I guess the airlines are also keen on safety and safe flight, but yeah, they are in a competitive environment which we are not as ASP, so it's a different game. Thank you. Wolfgang, what would you say?
Yeah, I want to take that idea of a common goal, of course, because that would strictly fit to what I mentioned before. The passenger is at the end the one who's needing our service from the whole community, and we need as NSPs to be flexible and to be able to adapt ourselves to different situations. In the years of 2012, 13, 14, we had less traffic and many controllers. Now we have a lot of traffic and too few controllers, and we are not able to be flexible in a very fast on a very fast track, and that is something we need to improve on, to get more the ability to adapt to what is really needed. Today we would more need let's say McDonald's approach, a fast food restaurant approach. We just to get hundreds of flights through in an hour, and 4 or 5 years ago we were looking for continuous descent operations. Is every flight completely sticking to low fuel consumption, CO2 things? So and then this is changing from time to time, and it is nothing new. But I think we are focusing too much on a crisis situation, regardless what crisis it's actually or it currently is. And I think for the whole community, common target setting would be a key answer to that question.
Thank you, Wolfgang. Vaclav?
Okay, so starting from the end, the performance and charging regulation, yes, it needs to be changed. We need to upgrade whole European ATM. We need to be more flexible. We need to change the way we work. We need to change we use the data, and we need to change the legislation. In the past, we've seen a strict, cost-effective approach, so there wasn't really spare time and capacity to build actually our new capacity to have more controllers. That's what Wolfgang said. Now we need more capacity and we don't have it. So we need a more balanced approach. So we actually need to prepare for what's coming on. And also the other thing what we see nowadays that some ACCs are actually being punished for handling more traffic. Handling more traffic because of 4ACC initiative for helping the network. Some ACCs are punished by decreasing the unit rates, and that's not motivational. That's not a good approach. So we really need to change the legislation in the aim of having common goals, and in order to motivate actually everyone to aim for the common goals.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it reminds me of the question that was brought to the attention of EC and the airlines, and regarding the delay pot, the common delay pot that we could have, where we could put these delays created by the 4ICC initiative or the summer 2019. And the answer from EC and the airlines said, no, of course not. It's not in the regulation. So that's one small piece of regulation that could be changed to improve collaborative, the goodwill and the good mood. Say, okay, we recognize that we can improve the system if we create a small pot. So that's a very good topic. Yes, thank you. Jed.
I'll continue on that. I think there were two issues I would say out of many network manager was interested in terms of the regulation, and maybe we're pleasantly surprised. We'll see. If we pick up on that one, what we found was to do the 4ACC and other projects, ANSPs were reticent to collaborate because they wanted some sort of insurance policy that if they took extra traffic, then the delay wouldn't. So, okay, the delay budget talks about that's been killed. But what we have in the new performance scheme is the mention of a delay assignment procedure, and we're writing the papers now to put that through the Director of Operations to the NMB and to the National Supervisory Authorities, and eventually to the Commission to actually define what that is. And essentially, it's what we've done with the 4ACC and that type of project. We put forward a case where we say we can reduce delays if we protect A, B, and C. And the only difference here is that whoever was deemed to be causing it, it goes back to them at the end of the day. Now, in theory, overall, they're onto a winner anyway in terms of delay and performance scheme. So in terms of the rule, that's in there. We just have to define the procedure. So that's good. The other one was about the predictability and sticking to flight plan and file it, fly it. In theory, I think the charging regulation of one element is this business of paying for what you flew. I think it's different. So we'll have to see how that pans out. In theory, it should bring predictability, but maybe there's some side issues as well we haven't put it through. But in general, we have to see how that goes. So I think those are the two. This next reference period that maybe from an NM's perspective, there's I think there are ideas that we listen to and there are elements in there. But in general, cooperating close, there's plenty of things we can do without having to look at a regulation. We've heard several today. So I think just having a look at what happened this summer, multiple regulations on one flow. You've got 3 ANSPs, 3 ACCs next door to each other, all regulating the same flow, and you know it's going to happen next year. That's a discussion and a preparation for the summer, I think. So that you don't need to look at the regulation. So hopefully there's plenty of that going on in preparation for the summer.
Thank you so much, Jed. So we're right on time. It's 30 seconds left. So thank you so much for joining us today at the FABEC Off Theater. Thank you for the huge audience. There are still a few seats left in the front row, but I see some people standing at the back. I should have looked at you earlier. Thank you so much for listening. And this session has been filmed and should be available on the FABEC YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube, you just type FABEC, and you should find the video in a couple of days, I guess, from now. So thank you so much, and have an excellent day.